Next customer, please come this way. The cash registers were getting crowded, so I quickly opened the one next to me and guided customers. After a while, the congestion was resolved, and I returned to stocking shelves. Mary, you're amazing for being able to ring up customers so quickly. The person who spoke to me was another part-time employee. In this supermarket, there are high school students and many people of the same age group as me, so I enjoy working here. My name is Mary. I'm a 45-year-old part-time housewife. I've been working at this part-time supermarket for about 10 years. When my child entered elementary school, I decided to find a job and applied for a part-time position at a local supermarket that was recruiting. There were many housewives like me, and the manager is also a parent, so it's a good environment that understands child rearing. I've been working here for 10 years. Before I knew it, I became one of the oldest part-timers. There are more familiar faces among the customers, and many people greet me, and I get along well with other part-timers and part-time high school students. However, I never expected that something like this would happen. One day, we were told that our manager, who we all appreciated, was being transferred, and we were all disappointed. But the manager was transferred to the headquarters, which seemed like a promotion route. He was competent, so it was inevitable. Although it was a shame, we all congratulated him on his promotion and sent him off. The next manager was from the headquarters and did not know much about the field. No one mentioned it, but being a manager from the headquarters seemed like a demotion. He was nagging and incompetent, and the atmosphere in the store deteriorated. According to other part-timers, the president's wife seems to favor young, handsome managers. The manager probably thought that he could benefit from being liked by the president's wife. I often saw him talking to her. The new manager's reputation was bad, but the president's wife was the worst. She complained about every part-timer. However, she talked to male employees and high school boys working part-time with a sweet voice. Although we part-timers were dissatisfied, no one dared to complain to the president's wife. Eventually, some part-time housewives and student part-timers started quitting. Just as I started considering looking for another part-time job, I became the target of the president's wife. You've been working at the store for a long time, right? How about your child? Already a college student? Which college? I was surprised to be asked such a question suddenly. Yes, I've been working here since the previous manager. I didn't want to talk about my child, so I tried to dodge the question. Then, the president's wife said this. You look incompetent. You probably didn't even go to a decent college, did you? That remark hit me in the heart. But just then, the register area got crowded, so I nodded to the president's wife and quickly got in line. Actually, I only graduated from middle school. I was bullied in high school. Tried my best to hang in there, but eventually couldn't go anymore and quit during the summer of my 3rd year. Since then, I'd been living as a part-timer, met my husband at a part-time job, got married, and lived in a world completely unrelated to educational background. But the president's wife seems to be the complete opposite of me. She brags about being a graduate of a prestigious university, even when nobody is listening. But for some reason, she stubbornly refuses to mention the name of the university. I thought it was strange, but since I wasn't particularly interested, I always let it slide. The president's wife probably had a preconception that housewives working part-time at a supermarket don't have high educational backgrounds. In fact, I once heard her talking about it with the store manager. Does she want to look down on us? Other part-timers also said they were asked about their education by the president's wife. The next day, as I was working, as usual, the president's wife came to the store again for some reason. "Excuse me." I looked up when the president's wife addressed me. She looked down on me and laughed, as if something was funny. Somehow, controlling my irritated emotions, the president's wife opened her mouth. "You're a middle school graduate, aren't you? I didn't think you went to college, but I never thought you were just a middle school graduate. It's amazing that you can work with that kind of educational background." I wondered where she heard that from, and remembered that yesterday the store manager was checking part-timers' resumes in the office. I thought the manager should know about the employees, but I guess that information went to the president's wife. Knowing that I was a middle school graduate, the president's wife told other employees about it for some reason. Frankly, it was annoying. I had no intention of faking my education, but I couldn't understand the nerve of someone who would go around saying that I was a middle school graduate. My part-time colleagues didn't seem to care and acted as usual, but since then, the president's wife would always bring up that I was a middle school graduate. "Maybe you wouldn't understand since you're a middle school graduate. Since you're a middle school graduate, at least do some cleaning." That was the president's wife's catchphrase. I don't have to work here to be told things like that. That's what I started to think. A few days later, the president's wife appeared at the store again. Just seeing her made me irritated. As I sighed and tried to walk past her, she was smirking at the cardboard box storage area. It was a place where we didn't go because the supplier would come to pick up the boxes. But for some reason, the president's wife seemed to be trying to make me clean it up on purpose. She said, "People like you should be covered in garbage. You bottom-dwelling middle school graduates are just salary thieves." This was the back room, away from the customer's eyes. I had always been able to bear it because I was usually approached in the sales area, but that day, I couldn't hold back my pent-up anger. "Excuse me, but I think I'm working for the salary I'm getting. I'm working properly, and education doesn't matter, right?" The president's wife looked a little surprised, perhaps not expecting to be talked back to. "Why don't you be a little helpful to the store if you're here? We never know what you're doing here. Are you just here to look down on us? You must have a lot of free time." I continued without caring about the other employees passing by and entering my field of vision. The president's wife glared at me. "Huh, unlike a lowlife like you, I'm busy. I'm taking time out of my busy schedule to come to this store." "Is that so? Then what are you doing at the store? You're just chatting with the manager, flirting with the male employees and male high school part-timers, and looking down on us, aren't you?" As I calmly stated this, the president's wife's face turned bright red with anger. "Just by being here, I make the store more lively, don't I? You should be more grateful." I couldn't help but laugh at her words. Do you really think that? None of us employees or customers think that way. It's interesting how there are people who have educational backgrounds but are useless in the field. I vented all the resentment I had been harboring from being looked down on. The president's wife must not have expected to be told such things. She could only come up with cliched retorts. "Do you think you can work here after talking to me like that?" So I responded without hesitation. "Then I'll quit." The president's wife laughed at me mockingly. "It'll save on our labor costs." I returned the smile. "Yes, that's right. Good for you." I then headed to the locker room. When I entered the locker room, the part-timer who had passed by the scene earlier was there, and I told her everything that had happened. "Mary, are you quitting?" She was sad because we had been working part-time together for years. Ever since the manager changed, it hasn't been fun, and it's like we're only working out of obligation, right? Many people have quit, but they don't hire more staff because it's a waste of labor costs. So our workload keeps increasing. I can't do it anymore. I guess that's true. I left the locker room and went to where the manager and president's wife were talking. Then, that's a quick story. Seeing me, the president's wife laughed. "I heard that the junior high school graduate is quitting here. I wonder if there's a place for a junior high school graduate to work." The manager also laughed, so I told them off. "Even if I have nowhere else to work, I won't come back here. I'll return the uniform next week. Thank you for everything." I felt strangely refreshed as I left the supermarket. The following week, when I went to return my uniform, the store was noisy. The manager seemed to be getting scolded by several customers. There seemed to be a commotion near the cash register. Maybe there was a mistake in the transaction. The customer's anger seemed extraordinary. However, there was nothing I could do since I had already quit. So I went to the office to leave my uniform. As I approached the office, I heard the president's wife's voice. Reluctantly, I opened the door and saw the former manager there as well. "Manager!" Even though he was now working at the headquarters and not as the manager, I accidentally called him that out of habit. The former manager seemed to have been talking to the president's wife, but she quickly left the office. "What happened at the register? There seemed to be some trouble." The former store manager tells me that there have been a series of complaints at the store lately. It seems that after I quit, other part-timers and part-time students all decided to quit at once. The manager was apparently working on the sales floor, but he didn't know how to stock shelves or operate the register, so he received complaints from customers. Today's incident involved the president's wife, who was talking to a male employee on the sales floor, and a customer mistook her for an employee and asked her a question. "I don't know anything about that." The president's wife apparently brushed the customer off. The manager then appeared and accidentally revealed that she was the president's wife, making the situation worse and causing more complaints, while the register area became very crowded. At this time, all the part-timers had quit, so employees and the manager who don't usually work at the register had to do so. And there were many mistakes. The register was so slow that customers started getting irritated, and it seemed the manager was being scolded. The former store manager asked me why I quit, so I answered honestly. He then told me that he heard that the president's wife did not graduate from college. He didn't know the details, but had heard she was a high school graduate. So what was that educational condescension about? Could it be that the president's wife is looking down on people with the delusion that she is highly educated? That made her seem even more dangerous. 2 weeks later, the supermarket where I used to work was deserted. It was unusual for so few customers to be there at this time. Well, it's not surprising after all those complaints, as I was thinking that I was approached from behind. It was the former store manager. After exchanging greetings, he told me about a new store opening 1 station away. "Mary, would you like to work there?" It seemed an employee the former manager had trained was being promoted to the new store manager. I could trust that person. I nodded and contacted my former part-time friends. When my part-time job at the new store was confirmed, some of my former part-time friends were there too, which made me feel relieved. The manager was understanding, and I felt like I could get along well with the other employees and new part-timers. The new store tried something different, handling local side dishes and bread, which was well received by customers. I began to see familiar faces from the previous store, and the new store had a successful start. According to the employees, the old store was very quiet, and the manager was scolded quite a bit at the head office meetings. Many people quit soon after being hired as part-timers, and there was always a shortage of staff. I found a new part-time job quickly, and since I was able to work happily like before, I thought everything was settled. However, about a month after starting work at the new store, the president's wife appeared before me. Well, she's the president's wife, so it wouldn't be strange for her to be at any store. But she seemed to have come specifically to see me. I heard a junior high school dropout is working at our store again, so I came to check. I could only sigh. What's wrong? I'm not doing anything bad. Do you realize that because of you, the other store is in big trouble now? Why is it my fault? I didn't do anything wrong. Rather, isn't the president's wife the one committing power harassment? You made all the other employees quit, didn't you? The president's wife suddenly got angry. It's completely unreasonable. The part-timer and the manager who used to work at the previous store noticed me and tried to help. But I stopped them. I, a middle school graduate, can't make all the employees quit. Why not ask them why they quit? Well, you can figure it out without asking. The part-timers nodded in agreement with my words. Shall I tell you if you don't understand? You look down on us because of our educational background. And the manager doesn't understand anything, only talks. No one wants to work part-time while experiencing power harassment. When I said that, the president's wife raised her voice again. Power harassment? Are you trying to frame me without any evidence? The moment the president's wife tried to grab me, the manager intervened. Can you please stop doing that to our part-timers? The manager's position would be compromised by saying such a thing to the president's wife. I was about to say I'm fine, but the manager said firmly, I am the manager of this store, and it's my job to protect the employees. I'll fulfill my role, whether you're the president's wife or not. Then applause came from the other part-timers. The president's wife finally lowered her hand that was trying to grab me. I took a deep breath, took out my smartphone, and said, I have evidence of power harassment. The president's wife glared at me. I played a video. It showed the president's wife yelling at another part-timer at the previous store for no reason. And it wasn't just one or two instances. The president's wife's face changed color. Then, the other part-timers came forward. Among them was a video of me being insulted for being a middle school graduate. At that time, we had conspired to collect evidence if anyone was experiencing power harassment from the president's wife. We didn't go so far as to file a lawsuit, but the videos were shared among part-time friends. So we had several at hand. Manager, we're going to sue her. When I said that, the other part-timers and the manager nodded. Naturally, the president's wife was furious with the manager. What's wrong with you? Do you think it's okay to say that to me? You're fired. Fired. Hearing that, I looked at the president's wife and laughed. Oh, I recorded that too. So we'll protect the manager who protected us. Hearing this, the president's wife changed her expression again and turned on her heels. It seemed she intended to escape. I called out to her back. There are more important things than education, right? Sometimes your humanity is more important when you enter society. Are you focusing on someone's education because you have a complex about it? The president's wife turned around and said, "How did you know that?" It seemed she had inadvertently admitted it. I laughed. The other employees laughed, and the president's wife, realizing her self-destruction, left at a speed I'd never seen before. After that, we decided to really sue the president's wife. We had videos taken by the part-timers, and the manager, who had been favored by the president's wife, admitted that he had been covering up her power harassment for his own safety, so we had solid evidence. The president's wife couldn't escape, and we were able to receive compensation. Then word spread to other stores, and many similar complaints were raised. The president's wife was sued for compensation, and the president, who found out about her behavior for the first time, was furious and told her to pay it back by working. It is a locally owned supermarket, so the president and his wife's house is also local. When I witnessed the president's wife working angrily at a nearby drugstore, I couldn't help but laugh. Since then, we have been working hard today under a trustworthy manager.